this is our in-depth conversation, which is going to be on a podcast on YouTube as well as on the Prime Media Plus platform. And our guest today is the incredible bassist, composer, producer, multi-genre musician who not only has he, had his own solo project, but he also delves into these collaborative projects where he has his own sextet, which he calls Mabuta. And then there's the other one called Skyjack. And then he also wears another hat as a writer and composer of electronic music. He's just here, there. You'll find him everywhere. And his name is Shane Cooper. Hi, Shane.
Hello, and thank you for having me, Sis Nothemba.
It is such a pleasure to have you, Shane. And I was thinking maybe I should ask you to bring your bass, but I'm thinking, that huge thing. How are you?
I should have, actually.
I thought about it, and I thought, okay, are you going to need an extra mic, or are we going to need to plug in things? But I just thought, actually, that one it's just appropriate, naked.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean?
To go anywhere you are, yeah.
Yeah, naked is the word, and it's and I'm just curious as to all these years playing the double bass or even the bass. How's your right hand?
Well, to be honest, right now it's good, but it's an interesting question because it is something that can cause injury. It's as you know, it's a kind of cumbersome instrument. It's not a very heavy instrument, but it's sort of it's something that requires a particular kind of mindfulness when you address it physically. And last year I had an injury, a nerve injury in my left hand, in fact, that meant I couldn't play. I was about to go on tour with this very group we're going to talk about later today. And a few days leading up to the tour, I was practicing, and because of not warming up in that practice session, I caused a nerve injury in my left hand, and I wasn't able to play the double bass for several weeks.
Are you
as a result. And this was 3 days before going on tour, so I had to play this kind of almost miniature electric bass because it was much lighter and easier to play. But yeah, it was.
Are you
it was
left or right hand?
I'm right-handed, but it's the one where it's on the neck, so it was
there.
that. So it was like the tip of the finger. It was weird, and it's related to the back really. So it's to do with posture and to do with picking up the instrument and just starting on that day. I was rushing into it and not warming up, and that caused this weird nerve injury. So it is actually something that's quite. It can bring a lot of injury if you're not careful.
So the warming up becomes very important.
It's so critical.
For the fingers and the whole hand, or the whole arm or whatever.
Well, really the whole thing. You know, the more I've delved into what I consider my kind of my current frame of practice, let's say with the instrument, it's become very much about a mindfulness and a slowness around everything when I pick up the instrument, and it allows me to tune in what I hope is a little bit deeper into the resonance and the actual relationship with the instrument. And so with that, the source of the energy actually comes from the center of the back, and it comes out through the shoulders and through the arms and then into the tips of the fingers. So all of this is all connected. You know, it's all very holistic. This is kind of the sort of path I'm on now.
Okay.
And so through discovering the necessity of this via having these injuries, it's brought me onto, I think, a more healthy path with the instrument. So yeah, it's all very critical. You can't just pick it up and go. You gotta ease into it.
And you know what brought my awareness to it? I was watching an interview with Christian McBride,
Right.
and he was talking about having when he was starting out, or he was into these jam sessions. And there would be a whole row of trumpeters, saxophonists, and but there were hardly any bassists. So he ended up being the bassist for all
hours
for the same song hours. And he was talking about how his hand even got swollen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of it.
Absolutely.
And it then occurred to me that this is quite an involved thing, especially if. But do you find yourself that there are not that many bases in jam sessions where you're there for hours on end?
This is kind of the cliche. So any bass player knows if they're going to a jam session to just attend and hang out, they mustn't think that they can spend most of the night chilling and having some drinks with their friends. Because as soon as that bass player who's in the house band sees them walk in,
he's like, thank you,
desperate
Jesus.
for a change. Yeah. And you suddenly in there, and then the next thing he's split, and you got 4 hours on the bandstand or whatever it may
and
be.
you're standing there all
You're
the
just
time.
standing there because typically there's a bunch of sax players and a bunch of trumpeters and so on. And you don't with the horns, they don't need to play on every song, and they won't be playing for the whole song. You know, the rhythm section's just playing the whole time. You know,
Yeah.
that's cool. I love Christian McBride. I mean, he's obviously one of the greats. So it's nice that you heard that story from him. I love that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because also just bassists as leaders
Yeah.
are hardly brought to the fore. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yeah.
And you wear the hats of not only the bassist, but you're the leader. You compose, and you also have these bands that you lead as well. When you're separating yourself from, okay, I'm the leader now, okay, I'm accompanying this band now, or this is my band, my rules, or how do you balance those different positions that you hold?
I mean, it's a great question. For me, firstly, as a bass player, the joy, part of the joy of that kind of role is being in the support system, the support team for everyone. You're often creating this environment so that there's space for the melody, space for the vocalist or saxophonist or whomever may be playing the melody, and then space for the soloists. And you're very seldom taking solos as a bass player. Your real function is to kind of for me, it's linking the drums and linking the piano or the guitar. So you're keeping that groove and you're outlining the chords as they're moving, and you're this kind of glue between those two instruments.
But we love the bass solos.
No, we do, and I
Yeah.
love them as a fan of bass players as well. But for me, my first joy is to just be cooking. You feel like you're driving in the engine room there. You're just cooking the whole time, and it feels so good. So whether that's playing, as a sideman for someone like Thandi Ntuli or Kyle Shepherd, or even with my own projects as a leader, if I create an environment where I'm having fun, grooving,
Yeah.
and just playing, like that's my first goal. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Later, then there's points where I want to, step into the front, so to speak, with a solo or a melody or whatever it may be. So that's the first, and I think that's a commonality between any project, whether I'm leading or working as a sideman, But then for me, it's really about the story. So every kind of group that I'm in, whether it's instrumental or lyrical, vocal, or hybrid, like, for example, I mentioned Thandi Ntuli. I love working with her because she can go from a vocal song to an instrumental song, but there's this storytelling that she has no
Yes.
matter what,
Yeah.
right? And I think the audience feels that as well. You can see it in their response. And so for me, my second sort of function in any house is to think about how can I best serve this story. What is the goal here? What is the message? And that can be abstract because maybe it's a love song. Doesn't mean there's only one way to play a love song,
Sure.
right? Whatever it may be. But
Love is so complicated.
totally, right? So many different ways to talk about that. So, but for me, I want to get inside the thinking of the storyteller, the band leader, and best serve that as a vehicle. And so it's the same thing with me. If I'm the leader, I find myself sometimes realizing maybe I'm not even sure what the story is. And so it served me to think in this way so that I can better articulate what is my story for myself, for my band.
Yeah.
And then that translates to the audience. So if I'm able to really get this thing to be very clear, I can translate that in the music. And so this is also, again, talking about this holistic approach. These are some of the things I'm dealing with now in my practice. And so by navigating that space and understanding what is it that makes a message talk really clearly, sometimes it's about simplifying and editing, and so, and you know this well from radio and that sort of thing. It's it's sometimes less says more.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's often about revisiting a composition and going, what really translates the essence here. Get rid of the rest, and that I always see the results with an audience, because the audience tells you what works. They do, especially in South Africa. We've got great audiences,
Absolutely. We'll talk about the South African audience a little later on, but I just want to go back to your younger self, back in Port Elizabeth, where obviously you moved to Cape Town after that. But as a teenager, what was life like for you in Port Elizabeth that got you even into the music business?
Yeah. I was very fortunate when I was in high school to have some great music teachers who I consider to be really the mentors of my early years. As has been the case in jazz globally, and certainly in South Africa, mentorship, I think, is at the core story of a lot of the greatest musicians now. So many of the musicians who've gone on to, I think, make the best records and create these incredible projects over the last decades. If you ask them about the origin stories, they had a mentor or many mentors. And so it really speaks to how this music, yes, it's institutional in these music schools and stuff, and that's very important, and that's also a space I do come from as well. But I would argue that having a good mentor is actually more instrumental.
Who were your mentors?
And so, yeah, in my early years in Port Elizabeth, I had, for example, I worked a lot with an incredible musician named Graham Bayer. I had an incredible music teacher named Marlon Louis. I worked a lot with the guitarist who was in the Genuines, the great band, the Genuines.
I think you were in that band for a bit.
No,
you weren't. Okay.
But yeah, worked with the guitarist who was in that band, Gerard O'Brien. So from a very young age, I had these people who were much older than me, and they took me under their wing, and they taught me so much. They showed me so much great music, and that's also really critical at, I think, a formative age, is to be exposed to a wide array of jazz. From the South African catalog to the American catalog, and you know, all the different subgenres of jazz. So I was very, very fortunate to be exposed to all of these things and develop a curiosity, a healthy love and curiosity for the music that later became really just a complete focus on bass and studying the music. I was then fortunate to go to Makanda, to the arts festival there, be exposed to Carlo Mombelli.
Is this when you won the Young Artist
No, this
Award?
is before. I'm still in school then.
Okay,
yeah,
this is
still in school then.
Okay.
And I go and I see Carlo Mombelli play with one of his earlier versions of his Prisoners of Strange bands, and that completely changed my kind of perception of music and sound, what was possible. Because up until that point, I guess I'd heard more just incredible bands, but live I'd heard, you know, there were only so many bands that toured through Port Elizabeth at that time. It was much more traditional formats and that sort of thing. So when I heard Carlo Mombelli, I remember him coming on stage, and he had a gramophone playing records and tuning in and out of radios, and he had loop pedals, and he was creating these sort of tapestries of sound with like scissors and weird kids' toys and all these things.
He has got the most, when he's on stage, he's got all these incredible different things that create these sounds, and you think how he even coordinates that is wild.
Absolutely incredible. So it was sort of eye-opening to me to see that all of this was possible, and also allowed within a sort of jazz framework to go anything is possible sonically. And so I saw that concert, and that kind of really was that was a catalyst for me to go, this is something I want to take really seriously and pursue. I went to a few of his workshops, and he illuminated for me what it takes to become a high-level musician in terms of the dedication and the time you need to put in. And so after coming back from that, I basically became completely focused on that. That was my life. I played endlessly.
Could that then been, or was it the other way around, in you now exploring the electronic music space?
So
Or what came first?
So
Yeah.
actually, at the same time, I was exploring it didn't create that interest. I was already doing it. I was dabbling on some computer
Ah.
software on the computer that belonged at home, like in my dad's office there and stuff. And I was playing with things anyway. But what that experience of Kolomombili created was this awareness that they could all come together.
Yeah,
There was no
just opening the world
completely.
of what is possible for you.
Completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was no reason to say a jazz group just has to be these acoustic
Me-
instruments
mm,
or only be sort of more of a traditional thinking around the sonic. It was like really anything can go. And that for me was a game changer because I realized that all of these things I was interested in within my own kind of research and curiosity had a space to come together.
yeah.
And then, I moved to Cape Town. I did the whole study at a university thing, which was great. I met incredible peers there. I met people like Bukani Daya, Sisonke Konti, Luanda Gogwana, Mandisi Gianchis, like so many amazing musicians that have all gone on to create incredible careers in that. So I was very fortunate to be there at that time with them. And then at the same time, my interest in electronic music was still there, but I put it on hold because when you study jazz in an institution, it requires a lot of time to really get into the music as much as possible and actually cover kind of 100 years of jazz history in a 4-year period. You're going to Louis Armstrong, you're going to the full spectrum from the early 1920s all the way to modern day. So I put everything else on hold and I just consumed my time with jazz. When I came out, I opened up again to everything. But while I was at university, the other great mentor for me was the late Zim Ngqawana. It was an incredible opportunity when I was, I think, in my second or third year in university. I got a call from him to join his quartet. And he had put together a quartet of young musicians at the time, and it was
Getting a call from Zim,
Yeah.
like, hello.
it was unbelievable. I still remember the phone call. I was driving on the M3 in Cape Town. I think I was coming back from a gig or something, and I got this phone call, and he said it was Zim, and I was like, no, I didn't believe it. And then he said, do you want to work with me? I said, of course, I'd be honored. And he invited me to come up to Joburg to basically play. And there was this opportunity to go and do a gig pretty soon after in New York at the New York Winter Jazz Festival at the Knitting Factory, where it was hosted.
Wow.
And the group consisted of Duzo Makatini and Ayanda Sakade. So it was amazing. And they'd been working with him for some time. Already and very involved within the framework of Zymology and so on. So I stepped into something that was already like cooking and arrived in Joburg, and I think we spent about 4 days together, and it was amazing because every day basically we would get up and we would go into there was this like kind of what used to be a sort of community farm church thing. So it had pews and a little stage and an amazing piano on stage. And we would get up and we'd go there and we would play for like 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
And it was mostly just playing through free improvisation, then through compositions of his, then free improvisation, then compositions of, and so you would kind of melt through these sound worlds. And that's how we worked on the music. It was amazing because at the time, he was also working on an approach that was we would play shows without a set list, so we would never know what we were going to play. All we knew sometimes was like we start in the key of F, and then we see what happens, right? So through that practice of getting up in the morning and just going and playing for hours, it was like a baptism, of fire for me, and an incredible way to basically go from, a newcomer to the situation to learn as much repertoire as possible, but also learn the ways of these musicians, what they'd been developing, and what Zim was hoping to get from us and from myself and that sort of thing.
And also allowing the freedom of and space for you
Yeah,
to explore yourself
absolutely.
in the moment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was incredible. So that was a really powerful experience, and we went and played in New York, and then after that, we had a bunch of really, really great tours in and around Europe. traveling by train and that sort of thing. So it was a very, very beautiful experience to work with him, and that I think he was really the other incredible mentor that played such a huge role in my development at the time. But not only at the time, I've said to people since that a lot of the lessons he taught were so philosophical, while being through the practice of music and through this journey of music making. A lot of it was around his philosophies to do with life, spirituality.
Yes, spirituality a lot.
It was all connected, right? And so a lot of that I've started to understand more in the years that followed, through my own journey as a human and through my own journey as a musician. And that's amazing. That's really a powerful thing, I think, when you can encounter someone who has an impact on your life, that it's still these messages and these stories sort of unfold with time. They're not just a learning that happens once, and that's cool. I wish I could tell him that now. But what's amazing is that he lives on through his music, and everything.
And through people like you.
Absolutely. I went to watch a wonderful Zim tribute the other day, and that was amazing because it was some of the original members from those early recordings. It was Andile Nana playing piano. We had Malum on bass, Herbie Tswaili, and we had Sisonke Auntie playing sax, who's now in the lineage, And so it was an incredible meeting of the minds. We had Ayanda Sekade on drums, who was then in this formation with Duduzo and myself. So it was an incredible kind of multi-generational thing, and it was powerful to see the response of the audience there, to feel the response in the community, and what that music has meant for so many people. It was profound. It was really beautiful.
Oh, that's just beautiful. And also, I'm just in awe of the appreciation of the impact of the kind of mentors you had, and how their legacy lives on through you and all these other musicians as well. But then do you deliberately decide that, with this other Shane Cooper side, who's electronic, you'll just call yourself something else so that we don't get confused? This card on spokes. Tell me about why you call yourself card on spokes there. Is it so that we know and acknowledge that there's different colors of you? This is one side. There's another. There are many others.
Absolutely, yeah. That was first done because what I wanted to do was, when I entered the sort of electronic music space, that's very much in the world of DJs and clubbing, and it's a very different community, and it was important for me to establish credibility in that space through the merit of the work I did, not because I was already known in the jazz world. I didn't want to enter and have people know me as this jazz guy who's dabbling in another space, because it would feel less intentional. So it was important for me to come into, and so most people, when I entered the electronic dance music space, most people didn't know I was part of the jazz world at all.
So they saw you for what you were
exactly
at that moment.
Exactly. And I needed to prove to them that this music and this kind of project was valid all on its own. And so through that, I built my own kind of reputation in that community, and then people started to realize the two. And a lot of that happened because back in the day of the Orbit in Joburg, there was also just around the corner in Braamfontein, there was Kitchener's, which was a big, it's still there, but it's a new version of it now. So I used to often come up when I was still living in Cape Town. I would come up and play a Friday night at the Orbit with the jazz group, and then straight afterwards I would run to Kitchener's to play like a dance music show of live electronic music. And most people didn't know I'd come from either or was going to the next, but we started to develop this kind of following of people who heard about it. They would come watch the jazz gig and then come to Kitchener's. And that was a very exciting thing for me as well, because by the end of the night, I felt like I'd kind of really fulfilled all of my cravings as a musician and as a fan of music. I'd been able to play like this cooking set with a jazz quartet and then go play to a crowded dance floor, like amazing, different kind of energy, different kind of vibe from the crowd, everything.
And then I'm sure that just made you feel so good.
Yeah.
That you can be all the things you want to be.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your recordings. Never mind the fact that you've just appeared in so many people's music. I don't know. Even if I try and list out, Tanin Tuli, what? In fact, some of the people you're talking about earlier on, you've appeared in their recordings and stuff. But then you've got your own solo project, and then you have these bands that you create, Mabuta and Skyjack. And how are those different from who Shane is as a solo, act?
Yeah.
Because I think you use the same musicians, if not some of them are the same in those bands.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because at the end of the day, like, even when, I think at this point for me, even if there are two projects that have some similarities and differences in terms of the music, in terms of the personalities inside, at the core of it all is like, and this is what jazz allows, I think this is what's so beautiful about jazz, is even within a project that's maybe a band leader situation or a collaborative thing, there's space given for everyone to really bring their own story, their own life story. So when I'm listening to music, when I'm listening to jazz that I enjoy, what I'm allowing myself to look for and experience is actually the life experience of each of these musicians and how they're able to bring that into their playing. Even when it's like very clearly, okay, there's a band leader, maybe it's even, there's less improvisation in this form, but nonetheless, inherently what's built into the nature of this music is that each person is able to really bring so much of what they've gone through, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights.
It's their story.
It's their story. It's in that thing. I can hear it in their hands. Like, that's what's amazing about microphones, right? If you go listen to a recording of, Brahobi Twali, you can hear his fingerprints on the strings.
You can, you're right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, listen to those songs. They're so beautifully recorded and some of the most amazing music.
You can hear him breathe.
You can hear him breathe, exactly,
yes,
right?
You can hear him breathe.
And that's amazing. Like pop music, and I love pop music, so I'm not criticizing it, but I'm saying a lot of the music that's very kind of controlled in every way, all of that stuff's cut out. Anything that's like considered an imperfection or like not this kind of perfectly photoshopped thing is removed from the final equation, especially nowadays, it's auto-tune and everything's really polished. And with jazz, you want to hear as much of the human elements as possible. You want to hear the cracks in the wood.
Organic in its natural.
100%.
And as we said earlier, naked.
Yeah, 100%, And so if you listen to two different saxophonists, they can besides the notes they're playing, the actual fundamental tone never sound the same. Like if you play me 3 seconds of Sisonke Konti, I can hear it's him. If you play me 3 seconds of Linda Sikakane, I can hear it's him. And if you play me 3 seconds of Coltrane, anyone, and that's what you aspire to as an artist. And so it's amazing because all of this, it's not just something those guys didn't. Yes, you go into a room and you go, what do I hear in my head as my sound? I want to pursue that. You do that, but there's a lot of stuff that just comes because that's the way you've been shaped with time and with experience, right? And so that's what I'm listening for first as a fan, and then when I'm listening to music, like for example, yesterday we're working on a live recording of a Skyjack song at the moment, and so I'm doing the mixing of it, and so the first sort of thing is to get the mix to sound good, make it really sound good, and then you sit back and you go, okay, let me emotionally listen to this. Does it translate? And I was struck by how this was a song composed by the trombonist, right? So it's really his kind of idea that we then breathe life into. But within this sort of 7-minute journey, I was able to hear the personality of each of the musicians in the group really clear, really distinctly. And I thought that's wonderful because that's, for me, when I'm writing a song for collab, that's also what I hope to achieve, is that each player feels some sort of connection enough to really breathe a lot of themselves in, not just
even us as listeners and appreciators, we hear and feel that.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm able to say, I'm loving what either the saxophonist is saying, because that is out. Sometimes I'd say that is so like him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because everyone has their own nuance,
Mm.
texture, and tone, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the because you've got Mabuta,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got Skyjack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Skyjack obviously is, I think, different because you've got the Swiss collaboration,
Yeah.
band members in it. Uh, I don't know. I'm trying to rush to, because I've got so many questions. One of those questions, I'll see if I can fit it in, has to do with how, with your travels
Mm.
and your collaborations, especially with overseas musicians, the Chabanka and all that, how have they viewed South African jazz,
Mm.
and what impacts
Mm.
have you seen it has had
Mm.
for even these kind of collaborations to happen, and for them to want a piece of this,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know?
I think the first thing is just you could argue that the experience that the musicians have had from the audiences here is perhaps one of the most profound impacts. And I think this could be felt by musicians from any. I mean, obviously Switzerland is a specific place in
Sure.
Europe, but I'm sure the American musicians who come feel the same thing, even though that's a very different culture.
They keep wanting to come back.
They keep wanting to come back. Yeah.
Us as music lovers, we express
Oh yeah.
the love
Oh, yeah.
and differently, I think,
Oh,
from
yeah.
what they're used to.
Yeah, I mean, South African audiences, I think, are some of the best in the world in terms of the feedback.
Yeah.
Live on stage, it's incredible. But you've got guys. I mean, one of my favorite things is when audiences here start singing the melody, because it's immediately like a church environment. People are singing 4-part harmony out of nowhere. It's incredible, and dancing like really well, and cheering, and the love is felt. There's a very musical country. Siam Tembu from The Brother Moves On, he always says something like we're a country of no lead singers, and I don't really agree, because we've got some of the most amazing lead singers, but I think what he's saying is really that everyone here sings, right?
Everybody.
And I love that, and that's really a unique thing. So yeah, they come, they experience that, and it's you want that again. You want that again. It's our life as musicians on stage. It's the feedback we get is what we live for in a lot of ways.
And so the other musicians, tap into that experience and want to be part of that.
Big time.
Yeah.
And that same energy they're getting on stage, they're getting in the streets, in the culture, amongst the people they meet. Like I remember a tour we did last time. One of the band members, when he arrived, he even said the people like at the airport were just so friendly. He couldn't believe it. Like he immediately felt like he could only be in South Africa,
Yeah. What's the difference between Mabuta and Skyjack in terms conceptually?
I think fundamentally, like Skyjack, really the first thing is it's very much an acoustic format. Kyle's always playing piano, at least in terms of when we can access a piano for the gigs and that, and certainly in studio. I'm on double bass. I'm never playing electric bass or anything else. It's really an acoustic thing. And then, the sax, the trombone, and the drums. So that's the first thing, is these are the paintbrushes that we use, and that's a very clear decision, which I love, because there's actually not a lot of projects like that for me in a kind of real focused way. And Mabuta is very much not that. I play, mostly electric bass. I play a lot of guitar in that project as well. Bokani has a lot of synthesizers and Fender Rhodes. There's actually only a small amount of piano played, so it's more focused on kind of the electric side of those instruments. Even like Robin Fussy, he uses effects pedals on his trumpet and things. So a lot of the core sonic colors that we draw from are really rooted. I can't even say modern, because it's actually, for me, my biggest inspiration with that is like music of the 70s. So it's the stuff that you heard from Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis when they went electric and started using Fender Rhodes and, synthesizers.
And also with Mabuta, the band membership changed as
Yeah.
well. You know.
Yeah, I mean, we originally had Marlon Vitboy on drums, and then it switched to Jono Sweetman. But we've also used a lot of guest artists where Skyjack's been really that quintet.
Yeah.
Mabuta, we've had a lot of amazing guest artists over the years. Even the last record, we had like many different drummers and stuff. So it was very much just about kind of not being too defined in certain areas and really open, and it jumps around. There's a lot of, I mean, some of the songs are very inspired by music from West Africa, and then some of the songs are inspired by electronic music from the United Kingdom. You know, it jumps around a lot. Yeah, it's kind of, but there's a cohesiveness for sure as well. I think if you ever listen to any one of the records, you can hear that there's a common ground. You know.
And then Skyjack, let's talk about the who's in that zoo.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really cool is, you know, Skyjack has at its core in the rhythm section, we've got Kyle Shepard on piano, we've got Jono Sweetman on drums, and I'm on double bass, and that's.
But okay, before you go into even more detail, because even with Kyle Shepard's projects, his trio, you guys are there, and it's like, okay, how are we going to differentiate whose project is this kind of thing? You know, but obviously you're going to tell us now as to it's got nothing to do with Kyle.
No, absolutely. So I mean, originally when the group started, we had Kesavan Naidu on drums, Kyle and myself, and then Kesavan wanted to go focus on some other stuff career-wise, and so we basically had a decision to find a new drummer, and there was an open. What we did is, instead of just going, okay, well, Jono works great with Kyle and myself, we've got this long history with the Kyle Shepard trio. We've actually had a few auditions and things like that. So we wanted to open it up and try, open the field of vision so we could see who's a good possibility here. And so the guys that we already knew from playing with, we actually had like a lot of meetings and we discussed them at length. And then I went off and auditioned a few people who were kind of new, like newcomers in the scene and that sort of thing, to just see. And we looked at everyone really honestly in the discussions, and ultimately found our way to Jono. So it was a very clear decision for musical reasons. But within the space, the way that Skyjack works in terms of like the democracy of it and the development of material, it's got its own language and its own approach. So Jono just stepped into that, and so it's just naturally still been a Skyjack journey, which is amazing, and an evolution of that. And then of course on saxophone we've got Mark Stuckey from Switzerland, and Andreas Chop on trombone from Switzerland. So
and to get them to be part of Skyjack, obviously that was very intentional.
Oh yeah, I mean it was actually a super organic process. Basically what happened was the origin story is in 2012, Kesavan and myself were invited to Switzerland to be part of this little festival that's run by Mark Stuckey. And we did a few shows just as a trio, sax, drums, and bass. And then we did this festival gig, and he said, why don't I invite my friend Andreas, who's a trombonist, on, and we make a little quartet thing. So we did that. It was an amazing experience, and we thought that was going to be the end of it. Sometimes these sort of festivals have these once-off, like multinational collaborations. And the following year, I won the Standard Bank Young Artist Award. And so there was an opportunity from the team to
go to Grahamstown.
To basically, like, when you win that award, it depends on the year, but if you win that award, they typically say, like, let's try bring someone from overseas to collaborate with you, and then they can do their own shows as well. So, you know, they get their own experience of South Africa and that sort of thing, but you then get this opportunity because there's sometimes some, access to help with flights and things like that. So they said, who do you want to try bring? And they were like, aim really high and let's see what's possible. And I said, well, I want to get these guys from Switzerland because we just had this experience a year ago. It was amazing. And they said, great, let's do it. And we brought them in, and we put together a little tour that included shows around SA and then also a show in Eswatini. And I said, let's add Kyle Shepherd.
Mm.
And that's it. So it's a super organic process. This also was only meant to happen once. So we did that tour. We did the Young Artist gig in Makanda, and it was amazing. And we said, let's try to do it again. That was it. But it was never, there was no point at which we were like, we're starting a new thing and this is going to have a long life. We just went for opportunities that came up. And then the next thing, we fell in love and we wanted to recreate it. So
you're touring now.
Yeah.
This end of this month, this year. Where are you performing?
We have 6 shows lined up, Johannesburg and Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be an amazing experience because we're premiering new music before we go into studio to record our next album.
Okay.
So this stuff's going to be played for the first time in front of live audiences, which is very exciting. It means that along the road, we will take influence from the crowd kind of energy that we get and maybe make some tweaks. You know, I'll always do that with my compositions. The first night we play it, the next night I might go, hey, let's make that section longer or cut out this section because of
Is this now new material from different from Light Cycle?
Exactly.
Which is the album you came up with last year.
Exactly. So this is all brand new material. So we're very excited to premiere it. And then straight after the tour, we'll go into studio. So let me read to you the dates now.
Yeah.
Johannesburg, it starts Friday the 5th and Saturday the 6th. We're playing
of December.
At Chisa de Pazzo Lupi in Melville.
Yeah.
It's going to be real nice. We're bringing in a baby grand piano, so we're going to have beautiful sound. And yeah, really excited. I love playing at that venue.
Kylie's best on a grand.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Sunday, the 7th of December, we are at this amazing festival, Umanyano Lwe Jazz. So we're super excited.
Yes,
my first time going.
Oh, it's an incredible experience.
Oh, wow.
That,
I can't wait. And shout out to them. They're really such a great team. Then the following week, we head to Cape Town and we're going to be playing Thursday, the 11th of December and Friday, the 12th at Ganesh in Observatory. This is a free show. So we want people to pack it out. And then Saturday, the 13th of December at Axminster House in Muizenberg. And that wraps up the tour, and then we head straight into studio.
Okay. We're about to wrap it up. But I think especially you talked about how mentors have been very important to you when you were young. And I'm thinking, for anyone who's young and wanting to reach the level of success for the likes of you, Shane, and they wonder, he has all these projects going on at the same time. You basically become your own CEO of your career.
Yeah.
As a musician, that's not easy.
Yeah.
Because you got to be your manager, your lawyer, your publicist, your publisher, your everything. How do you get that right?
Well,
and especially if you're an independent artist who doesn't have a big record label to do all that stuff for you.
Oh yeah. I had to learn the hard way that it's actually about taking time off. That's something I learned the hard way. So I used to just basically have like the whole discussion around work-life balance. It was just work for me. And at some point I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. So I became much more proactive and conscientious about taking time off. And by doing that, I became way more efficient at the time I was working. So I was much more focused on time management and strategizing and being really kind of curatorial around what's important when do I need to be creative, when do I need to focus on the business, because I don't like to be, if I'm jumping around very close to each other from a creative zone to a business zone, they both suffer. So I have to compartmentalize to be very effective. And I'll have to go, okay, for the first half of tomorrow, I'm just composing. There's no phone, there's no emails, there's no distractions. Then I'm really effective at being creative. And maybe the second half of the day, I'm dealing with the business side of things. And that's the only zone I'm in, and then I can be really efficient with that. So taking time off became the number one kind of like focus for me to actually become better at my job, better at my business. And yeah, that seemed counterintuitive at the time, but it totally paid dividends. So I was really quickly learning my lesson. And it's tough. I'm not going to lie, being independent is really tough. There's times when I do wish I had a team or a record label or things like that. But there are benefits as well. There's a great joy in having complete creative freedom, and I own everything I make. No one else owns my masters.
Those are important points.
It's really important
for people to note.
Yeah.
But also with the evolution of technology now, and you are quite a high tech guy. The importance or the difference or the implications around the live performances now that there's this streaming and high tech and environments that we are in, especially from the musician's point of view. What's ideal?
It's such a dynamic time. Things are moving faster than ever. As soon as you feel like, okay, this is the new paradigm of technology and music, something else changes. And so the real struggle for musicians is that streaming pays very little. So it's very hard to monetize that. You can make significantly more from selling merchandise. So that's something that's really important to focus on is vinyls. CDs are hard to sell, but whatever you can, you find the market, right? T-shirts, things like that. But at the crux of it all is live performance. And I'm not talking about like as a way to make money. I'm just talking about what we do it for, what it's about.
Yeah.
And that has to be your North Star, because every time I step on stage and I'm able to play for an audience who are receptive, I'm reminded this is what it's about. And so I think through any evolution that may happen with technology, because it's coming fast and changing all the time, that's the constant.
That needs to be the constant.
It needs to be the constant. And so if any artist lets that be their North Star, the experience, the human interaction, the experience of being in a room with people, they will be fine, because that's what guides this whole thing. It's community driven. We need to remember that and focus on the human connection. Forget about the tweets, forget about the TikToks, all of that stuff. As soon as you're in a room with people and they're feeling the music and the energy, it's a spiritual thing, and it's a timeless thing, and it's not owned by any corporations.
And I think we can end this conversation by you maybe just telling music appreciators as to why it's important for them to attend the live performances that are there. Because to be honest, even with me, yes, I can listen to music in my house on with the headphones or on the music system or even on the phone, but there is something about experiencing that music in a live performance environment, because not only I'm not on my own now, I'm not receiving this, I am interacting not only with you as an artist and with the music you show, but with the energy with everybody else, feeling all this energy come out, becomes so much different from when I'm at home.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that the reality is that any live gig is a completely unique experience that's made up not only of the band and the performers, but what the audience brings. And so that's what you got to remember, is that when you're attending that thing, you are also creating this experience for the band and the audience around you as a member of the audience, from just being there. Even if you're a shy person and you're not singing and dancing, just the sheer fact of being there creates an ambiance and an atmosphere that is a one-of-a-kind. It's a one-of-a-kind thing. And you feel that when you go home. You feel lifted. You feel like all of the woes of your day or your week can go. It's amazing. I think recent studies, actually, I can't remember from which university, have come out to show that being at a live music event or live sporting event is physiologically essential to our happiness, because we're wired to have it historically from our great ancestors because of community. And in the modern world, you can become quite isolationist. And so every time you return to these environments, you're reminded of what that community feeling is. And so being part of that can, in terms of music, it can only come from a live music experience. And it's so much bigger than all of us, you know?
Who's your go-to person when you want to check whether or not is this okay?
You mean
Did I do right? Either in decisions you're making or in when you're composing music and you've recorded something, who's the go-to person to bounce off ideas?
And different people for different things, to be honest. Yeah, it's different people for different things. But in terms of the music, I will say this. So I have a very small circle of people I trust to play new music to when I'm working on it. And what I do, this is my methodology, is I will invite them into my space to hear it, and I'll stand behind them and I'll just observe their body language. And I ask them to not say anything. I don't want them to say anything. I just observe their body language, because body language doesn't lie.
So what do you look for? A twinkle in the eye, and a smile, or a scowl?
It's even
or,
less,
or a eyebrow raising, or
it's even more subtle than that. It's little things. It's the twitch of a shoulder. It's changing posture. It's hard to describe, but you kind of feel it. And this is a phenomenon that I've seen come up in other interviews after I'd been doing this for a few years. I saw people talk about how your perception of your own music changes to this degree you can't even describe as soon as you play it in front of someone. It's weird. It's a psychological effect. You can't hear it in the same way. It's impossible. And so it's the subtlest of things. But even if they don't do it, I'm almost aware on a subconscious level somehow. And maybe that's even just my own perception changing and being allowed to hear something different. But it's informed a lot of musical decisions I've made. And it's a select group of people that I have for kind of different genres. Yeah.
I can imagine. Listen, Shane Cooper, stay amazing and incredible as you are. And continue with the projects that you do and the creativity. I know you're doing music for movies, and if we had more time, we'd go delve into all those things, but we don't have time. But I'm obviously thinking there'll be another band concept that'll come from you.
Yeah. Or next year I'm launching one, actually.
Oh, you see, I knew it. I knew. Thank you so much for coming to Jazz and Beyond. It's a pleasure, and also I hope it has brought a little more understanding for the appreciators of your music as to what goes into it. And all the best with your tour.
Thank you so much.
With Skyjack.
Thank you.
Come for the jazz and stay for the good times.
On Jazz and Beyond with Nothemba Madumo.
On 702 and Cape Talk.